Welcome to The Explainer. So, today we're tackling a topic that literally affects every single one of us. We're going to break down how the conventional wisdom of money, the stuff we've always been told as the responsible and smart way to manage our finances, might actually be quietly destroying our wealth over a 30-year timeline. We're putting the popular myths right up against the real math, and honestly, the numbers might completely shock you.
Okay, let's dive right into this. What if the exact moves you're making right now to be financially savvy are costing you millions? The entire financial system is basically designed to sell you on a monthly payment or a shiny status symbol, all while completely hiding the massive opportunity cost behind the curtain. We think we're making these great choices, but what if those exact choices are the very things keeping us from building real generational wealth?
Part 1. The car payment trap and hiding the opportunity cost.
Picture this. You walk into a dealership and the finance manager isn't actually asking what you can afford, right? They're calculating what you can be approved for based on your debt-to-income ratio. To see exactly how this trap works, let's look at three people buying the exact same $35,000 car. Sarah pays in cold, hard cash, Tyler finances, and Megan signs a 36-month lease. Now, they all start with $35,000 in their savings. Who actually has the most money at the end of 3 years?
Well, the answer usually shocks people, because conventional wisdom says paying cash is always the ultimate boss move. But here's the real math. By paying cash, Sarah completely loses out on compounding interest. Megan, who leased, is left with zero equity. Technically, Tyler, the guy who financed, is the winner here, but only under one absolutely strict condition. He must invest his $35,000 of cash in the market. The spread between a 7% auto loan and a 10% historical stock market return is exactly where he pulls ahead. So how do we actually protect ourselves from buying way too much car? You use the 20-4-10 rule. It's pretty straightforward. You put 20% down, you finance for no more than 4 years, and your total transportation costs, meaning your loan, gas, and insurance, have to stay under 10% of your gross income. If you need a 72 or an 84-month loan just to make the monthly payment fit your budget, you cannot afford the car. The math simply doesn't work. To put this into perspective and show you just how incredibly high the stakes are, check out this number, $1.81 million. That is the actual opportunity cost over 30 years if an executive earning $200,000 a year decides to buy a brand new $130,000 Porsche Cayenne, instead of just grabbing a 3-year-old certified pre-owned BMW X5. If they bought the BMW and just invested the $800 monthly difference in the S&P 500, they'd have nearly $2 million extra dollars in retirement. You see, you don't just lose the price difference on the car, you lose what that money would have compounded into. All right, part 2, the real estate illusion and the quiet coworker. The internet absolutely loves to sell the dream of effortless passive income through real estate. But let's check the math on that. Meet Jake and Marcus. Jake buys a residential single-family rental. Marcus buys a commercial space. They both put $70,000 down and continuously add $500 a month for 30 years. But they also have this quiet coworker who took that exact same money and literally just bought a plain S&P 500 index fund. Now, what's really interesting about this is the hidden reality of being a landlord. Jake's gross rent fantasy gets entirely eaten up by property taxes, insurance, surprise repairs, and the brutal 50% rule. Marcus is out there facing commercial balloon payments and vacancy risks. Meanwhile, the index fund reality is kind of beautiful. No tenants, no mortgages, no midnight plumbing phone calls, just pure, uninterrupted passive compounding. Let's fast forward 30 years and look at the real math. Jake's residential properties net him $1.13 million. Not bad. Marcus's commercial bet yields $1.44 million. But the quiet coworker? $2.21 million. The completely hands-off index fund absolutely dwarfs both leverage real estate strategies over 3 decades. The coworker essentially won the game without fixing a single toilet or losing sleep over a tenant bailing. Moving on to part 3, the middleman penalty, or why banks essentially just rent your money. It is so easy to feel super responsible when you use a high-yield savings account. You might think you're beating the system by earning 4.5%. But have you ever stopped to think about what the bank is actually doing with your deposit? They're just renting it from you. They take your cash and they either lend it right back out to credit card holders at 21%, or they use it to buy short-term U.S. Treasuries. This creates something known as the net interest margin. It's all about the spread. The bank is simply acting as a middleman between you and the US government or between you and borrowers. They pay you a fraction of the profit, and they pocket that massive spread for themselves.
So the crucial point is how taxes play into this. That heavily advertised high-yield savings rate gets slashed by both federal and state income taxes. But if you bypass the bank entirely and buy treasuries directly, or use an ETF like SGOV, that interest is legally exempt from state and local taxes. If you live in a high-tax state, that tax exemption alone is going to easily beat the bank's advertised yield. Okay, so here is your actionable playbook to just cut the bank out of the equation. Step 1. Keep your checking account for your daily bills. Step 2, identify your idle cash. We're talking about your emergency fund or down payment savings. Step 3, move it directly to a T-bill ETF like SGOV or use Treasury Direct. You cut out the middleman, you save big on state taxes, and you maintain incredible safety because treasuries are backed by the exact same federal government that backs the FDIC.
Part 4. The Stealth Retirement Account, the HSA. Let's shift gears from regular savings to what might just be the ultimate tax hack. Quick question for you. Which account is the only one in the entire US tax code with a triple tax advantage? It's the Health Savings Account, or HSA. Your contributions go in pre-tax, the money grows tax-free, and it comes out completely tax-free for qualified medical expenses. And get this, if you fund it straight through your payroll, it even bypasses the 7.65% FICA tax, so it's literally quadruple tax advantaged. The crazy thing is, almost everyone uses it wrong. Look at Derek. He treats his HSA like a glorified flexible spending account, immediately draining it to pay for his kids' braces. His balance basically stays near zero. But then look at Aaron. Aaron treats his HSA as a pure, long-term investment vehicle. He actually pays his current medical bills out of his regular checking account and leaves that HSA money completely alone to compound in the S&P 500. Let's move to and see how this builds into an absolutely wild strategy called the Receipt Playbook. Step 1, max out your HSA contributions. Step 2, pay today's medical bills out of pocket and diligently save every single receipt. Step 3, invest that HSA balance. Step 4, cash out decades later. You see, the IRS has absolutely no time limit on when you reimburse yourself, meaning you can hand in 20 years worth of receipts at age 65 and pull all that money out completely tax-free. And the result of that patience? Aaron walks into retirement at age 65 with a staggering $533,000 in his HSA, completely immune to taxes. Meanwhile, Derek, who earned the exact same money and had the exact same medical bills over his life, ends up with absolutely zero in his HSA.
Finally, Part 5. The math always wins, and the compounding crossover.
So if the math is this clear, why do so many people fail to reach these massive numbers? Well, it's mostly a psychological hurdle rooted in the compounding curve. Take a look at Lisa's timeline. She dutifully invests $500 every single month. In year 1, the market only gives her $225. Even by year 5, her gains are just over $6,000. For that whole first decade, Lisa is the engine doing all the heavy lifting. But then, right around year 10, she hits the crossover. That's the magical point where the market's annual gains finally outpace her own contributions. The money is literally building itself at that point. But here is the gut punch. This compounding runway is incredibly fragile. If Lisa has an emergency in year 4 and pulls just $8,000 out of her investments, it completely resets her compounding base. That single withdrawal costs her the $8,000, sure, but it also delays her crossover point. Ultimately, that one move costs her $63,000 in lost compounding by year 30. You absolutely have to protect the base at all costs so the math can actually work for you.
We'll leave you today with this really powerful thought to chew on. The only real question was never whether you can. The math already answered that. The only question is whether you will. Are you going to keep blindly following conventional wisdom, buying the car the dealer approves you for, draining your HSA, letting the bank rent your money? Or are you going to start using the real math today? The numbers are right in front of us. The choice is yours. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. And remember, keep the mouth honest.